As you remember last time, we had discovered what looked like a diode in a 1937. And one of the things is, when I looked at it, I said, well, that's a diode, and someone has put a modern diode into the radio. After further research, and I should have had the mindset of, let's think of a technician back in 1930s and early 40s. Let's try to put ourselves in that mindset. What would look like a diode? I didn't do that. And so let me show you some of the solder that's splattered all in this thing, and then we'll explore exactly what what appeared to be a diode really is. I think you'll be surprised. All sorts of little droplets of solder. I've already got some out of between the pins. It's a wonder it wasn't shorted in the output tube. I was trying to track down some of these components, but it's a mess. Here's some more solder droplets down in there. It's a mess. It is a mess. Now, was this a hack job, or did this go bad in 1942, 43, 44, and people wanted to hear about the war, and some guy fixed it the best he could? I don't know. That's one of the things you run into in some of these 30 radios is you may call them hack jobs, but in the day they wanted to get the radios going, so they did the best they could with the parts they had. Personally, I think some of this was a hack job, either way you look at it. Well, just poking around, and looked like I found a name. Kelly Roberts Powell. Not real sure. Not sure about the date, but the last digits are 45, so somebody worked on it in 1945. So somebody put their name on it. I guess I'll sign mine. What do you think? Okay, remember that diode? Let's look at pin 8 of the 6F6, the cathode. It comes down to this set of resistors, and from pin 8 to ground should be 150 plus 80. Okay, so from pin 8 to ground should be 150 and 80, so that's about 230 ohms. Let's check that. Let's reach back in here, pin 8 there, and ground. And we have approximately 250 ohms. Well, running that out, here's the ground, and there's the 150 ohm resistor. The 150 ohm resistor, that's the ground, and there's the 150 ohms going to this pin, and going to here is approximately 90 ohms, where I thought that's where the diode was. That's not a diode. If it is, then it's acting as a resistor of 90 ohms. We will reverse it. And so that's a resistor. I can't see anything on it, but if you can see, it's got one band. And it looks just like a cathode band for a diode. Go figure. The parts list calls for an 80 ohm 1/4 watt resistor. I thought this was a diode, but that's 30 years prior to a diode. So it's the old bed. Black. That's either white or gray. I think it's probably gray with a brown dot, which would make an 80 ohm resistor. It's reading right around 89, 90 ohms, which is within 11%. So I'm going to leave it in there. So where do I begin? Well, I think what I'm going to do is I think that I'm going to start at the beginning and work my way this way. If you think about it, in most radios, the filter caps have been changed in a lot of cases, and then the modifications sometimes are around the power amplifier to get better sound or different frequencies, what have you. Everybody tries to improve on that. So I think what we need to do is sweep this way and take care of all this section first and rebuild it and get it cleaned up and get cleaned out. But before we do that, I think we need to go ahead and I've noticed that this is broken a little bit here and cracked. I think I can, kind of patch that a little bit, but I need to get this cover off, and I'm not going to take it off just yet. But what I want to do is I want to go ahead and take, I think these two screws will take it off, but I got to take this this knob off. The way it works, if you see it or not, there is a where my pointer went. It's just kind of compressed on there. Just I can't pry it this way because I don't know if I can prise it this way. I'm afraid I'll slip. So maybe I can take a screwdriver and kind of and I don't know if I kind of squeeze it this way, spring it just a little bit, very carefully, and pull it off. Maybe not. I'm getting awful close there, aren't I, guys? I've got those bulbs ordered, by the way. I went on Amazon and started looking for them, and I found some for $65. That's the needle. I think this just pulls off. It does. Sorry guys. And then this pulls off that way. Alright, that just needs a good cleaning up. Probably needs to be painted white. Okay, let me find something to put this in. And let me find some good container that I won't lose. This is not the smallest thing I could find, but it should be okay. And we'll clean that and paint that a little later. Put this in a safe place, and I'll put my knob with the rest of my stash in the bag. Ever so gently am I prying these little rivets, and they're kind of spring loaded themselves. I'm gonna hose this on, but I don't want to break the hole that it came in. I'm gonna have to, I think I can patch this with a little bit of super glue. But the main thing is I just don't want to put too much pressure on it and break it. This is the one that's worrying me the most. If I break this, I'll never forgive myself. There we go. We can save those rivets and maybe patch this up, and we'll take screws and take this right off. Okay, that's off. I'm sure I can get a replacement for that if I have to, but I think that's all right. We'll have to be careful and see what, make sure that it, we'll try this corner with these letters with some water, just some plain water, and see if it comes off. Cleaned it up with a little bit of water and put a little glue, and using some of my high-priced clamps. Okay, if you hear anything in the background, it's my little fan. It's pretty warm tonight. Got in the 60s today, and it tomorrow night's going to be a wintry mix. Anyway, I'm taking this tuning condenser out so I can clean the chassis a little bit, and I had to desolder. It had been, this nut had been soldered on, and I couldn't use a nut driver. Had to use my little 1/4-inch wrench. So I'm going to drop some of these components out of here so I can clean it up, and then we'll start building back. Got some washers. They don't match, so it tells me they may have, this may have been off at one time. Who knows? But we can clean that up a little bit. Well, I took a little warm water and a tablespoon of vinegar or so, and toothbrush, and cleaned this out. Put a little grease down in it, and cleaned it up pretty good. We'll put this to the side and put it in a little later. Taking the power cord out. So let's go ahead and just cut this capacitor out. And get this thing out of the way. Might be able to see something in here now, but guess they did what they had to do at the time. It was a 20 microfarad at 600 volts. Alright, we'll go ahead and just cut this one out too. That one was 16 microfarads. I think there were 14s and 12s according to the schematic, I believe. 14 and 12. Yep. Alright, that's a lot better. So now we can work our way through this mess. Clean some of this stuff up. Pretty nasty. Okay, I've tried to clean it up a little bit, and this is fairly nasty. What I'm going to do, as you can very well see, I have taped over the name. I took a cloth and wiped it off and almost wiped the name off, but I am not going to remove that man's name. Matter of fact, I may come over here and put my name when I get done. But what I've decided to do is, this is a copper clad, so what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to remove as much hardware as I possibly can and paint this. The front I'll touch up down here where especially the corrosion, so it will stop the corrosion. Cover, not going to, so there'll just be a patch there that's original, and it'll show that name, and then I can take the shells off and paint this, or maybe even just paint it just like that. Remove these, clean these up somewhat, and take this coil off also, and should be able to paint it with no problems. And then that should clean out some of this junk under here, and then make it new. Let's take a look at this. I labeled every one of the leads coming out of the transformer. Some of them have been spliced. Some of them are cracking, and some of them are extremely short. You can see there's a bare spot right there where that's broke. So I think what we're going to do is, when we get it out, we'll look at it. Here's some more solder in here. Anyway, I'm going to take it out. Probably take the clamshells off, look at the terminals inside, and maybe replace these wires with something that's more flexible and more modern. So we'll see what we do when we get it out. 4 screws and nuts on it. We'll take it out. I've disconnected the wire to the antenna coil, marked it, took a picture of it, denoted it on the picture, and there's 2 nuts holding this plate, and it should come right out. One more wire right in here I got to take out. That was the ground wire, and I clipped that, and now we have the antenna coil. We'll wipe that, just clean it up real quick, and may go ahead and I don't know, it's a pretty decent wire. Just kind of leave that original. I don't like the looks of that, but somebody had gotten into it. But we'll just clean it up a little bit and put it away, and I'll check the continuity again. I've touched those spots up with some beeswax, and also there was one of the wires that was kind of dangling loose here. As fine as it is, I put a little beeswax on it to so it wouldn't get snagged or what have you. And I replaced some of the wires with more modern stuff. I left the external one coming out the back of the radio original because it was okay. So maybe I'll need to tin that, but let's put this aside. And I did check the continuity, and it's still good. Well, I went ahead and took off the IF cans. I hope I can clean those up. They look like they can clean up. Got to really be careful. It's got the part number and 456 KC on the top. Maybe I can keep those intact. I also replaced this grid cap wire, and got to wait to put the cap on the top of it until I get the can back on. I think I'm going to take and just scrub this thing up really good, mask it off, and paint it with a copper color paint. I think that'll be all right. Okay, I took this and I put it in a sink with good soapy warm water and scrubbed it with a brush to get all the grease and stuff off, protecting this name. So I've gone back and I've masked it. I used the aluminum foil. I just felt like it was self-forming. I can put it in there. Put a rubber band around all this to hold it up and up out of the way. This wire is goes to a grid cap. I plan on replacing it anyway, so I didn't feel like I needed to replace it. I did cover up the rivets on top. I didn't on the front because even though I'm going to paint this front, the front is really not going to be showing that much. And the back, I'm going to stick some cardboard and take some cardboard and fold the ends in and stick it in each end to kind of keep it out. I masked these. Now I may go ahead, well, I'm not going to mask this one, and I did not mask this, and simply because there's some corrosion around it that I've cleaned up. So I'm just going to make sure that I coat it really, really well. And so I don't think that's going to make that big a deal anyway. But we're going to shoot this with some paint. It's a copper color, so hopefully it won't be too bad a mix. But I did not want to take this guy's name and date off there. Just simply, he put it on there for a reason, and I just felt like I owed it to him to do that. So I really want to try what David Tipton. I've watched him. He takes a punch the size of those rivets and punches some tape and just lifts it up and puts it on there. I had to individually do it. Also, I need to get me some of those magnet calendars or ball, you know, that goes on a refrigerator, your baseball schedules, things like that. And he uses it in these big places that just put it up in there. I just used tape today, but because I didn't have any magnets. My refrigerator is stainless and it doesn't, magnets don't stick, so that's one of the downfalls there. But anyway, I'm gonna end this video here, and in the next one we'll come back and we'll have worked on the transformer, cleaned up the IF cans a little bit, have this painted, and then we'll start trying to put this thing back together and see if we can't make it play. I guess some of you are out there saying, well, why didn't you get it to play and then go through all this? But well, there's just a lot. There was a lot of electronics under there that I wanted to check out, and some of it to be replaced totally. So that's the reason. Build it up from the chassis up. So we'll see if I can put it back together. So I appreciate all my subscribers. I've got a few new ones. I appreciate, apparently you saw something that you like on there. If you're watching for the first time, hit subscribe. I've got a little over 500 subscribers, and they're all really neat, cool people. They're very supportive and everything like that. And I'm not really into numbers. I'm kind of like what Doug, DERB, Mosslack has put out, that you know, this is a community. This radio work is a community, and anybody that's in it understands that. And if you've done this before, we stick together. I mean, we make suggestions, but we're not really critical of each other. We pass those along. There's a right way to criticize and to give constructive criticism. There's nothing wrong with that. You just don't have to be smart about it. Now, I'm not saying this, and nobody has done that. So don't say, well, I hope I didn't say something wrong. No. It's not. It's just in today's society, sometimes we just people are real easy just to go off and just criticize, and unless you've done one of these, and like I've said in a lot of mine, every time I do one of these, I learn something. Now, I may forget 2 things, but I remember. I do learn something each time. I might have already remembered it once and I'd forgotten it, but that's another story. But so anyway, that's a little bit of a soapbox there, and nobody has done or said anything about it. But I'm not really worried about my numbers. I just appreciate the ones that I've got, because they're really, really supportive and they're really nice people and everything. Hey, and by the way, I saw that my buddy Michael out in Utah, he's not calling it the Western Outpost now. I don't know what he's going to call it. But he's put out a couple of videos today. It's really good. I've talked to him a little bit on exchanged some emails. And it's really, really great to see him back in the saddle again. So if you hadn't checked him out, go over there and check out that Tube Sound. That's Michael on the Western Outpost out in Utah. So going to wrap it up. It's kind of long-winded, but until next time, this is Larry from the hills of Tennessee. Thanks for watching.